you don't have a badge right now? Yeah, you didn't get a badge printed out this morning? Yes. Okay, so my fuck up this morning is we ran out of paper to print all the badges. And I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna punish myself severely from that, and then learn from this mistake and move forward. So there's one of mine. Start thinking about what you might have messed up this morning. And that's gonna make this session work a lot better. To start with us, Rory Anderson, who's the CEO of Btobet, has generously offered to share his mistakes first. So, Rory, if you will begin. I think you've got your microphone already.
Hello. I guess this discussion around fear of failure, preventing innovation, and not being conducive to having a productive workforce, it's almost become cliche. But I think the truth is, whilst most people who go to the conferences, watch the TED Talks, read the articles on this subject, whilst they agree with the principle, the key message to employees is still, don't screw this up. And I think it can be very damaging to a company to have this kind of culture of where there is a fear of failure, where you have this cycle of kind of mistakes, fear, blame, cover up, which leads to not learning from the experiences, which means that the key issues remain, which leads to more failures, more mistakes, and so on and so forth. So I think it's still a very important discussion to have. Now, of course, we don't want to fully encourage failure. You have to be focused, you have to avoid it where possible. But I think it becomes problematic where your need to avoid failing exceeds your motivation to succeed. One example of where things didn't go too well for me, I started a media agency many moons ago. Started well, I had a good client, and I had good knowledge at the time in terms of what gaming companies would require from a media agency in order to be successful, so building the brand and delivering cost-effective customer acquisition. Where I struggled perhaps was in terms of admin and finance. It was something that I could do, but it didn't come natural to me, and I basically spent a lot of time procrastinating, putting off key work, pushing it to the...
For example, about Btobet, who thinks about Btobet that succeed in Africa. We are in 26 countries, we are present, we are strong. We consider Btobet the leader in Africa, and it's very nice. But this was through strong failures. It not happens like this. Some years ago when we decided to go in Africa, we saw this continent as an opportunity. You go there, the mobile is booming, there is smartphones are booming there as well. You look some countries like Nigeria, 30% of the population there use WhatsApp. The population is 200 million, it's not some people. So everything was amazing to move in Africa and to start there to deliver a new technologies. So it's what we did. We had an amazing platform, let's go in Africa. Immediately when we went there, we signed with customers. We acquired these customers, they come, so amazing, we can do this. We were quite happy, everything is good. What happens? Boom. But boom because we failed. Because we start to lose the customers. It was not working. And then you start, okay, you failed. Some company did the same and they just give up. We didn't want to give up. So we look what is happening there. And first things was the way you can deliver the sportbook. So we are talking about the front end of the sportbook. You look at these countries and you see that, for example, data is a big issue. It's a big issue because when someone have a small wages and internet cost in comparison quite a lot, you cannot have the same experience that you have in Europe. So the first challenge was, let's try to bring the same experience, improving significantly the quantity of data transfer. So which first challenge was a technical challenge. So we did it. And at the end we developed probably one of the best front-end application for customers there. We think it was okay. We have the right one, let's start to market again and to acquire customers. And then we discovered that again new problems. What is in Africa? In Africa, the average steak, 50 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents. Wow, what does it mean? massive quantity of transaction. But as a platform provider, you earn a percentage of the GGR. That is a percentage of the stake. So when you take 10 cents, and the average it's, 2 cents GGR, and then you take a percentage on this, and then your system needs to perform. Because otherwise, it's nice. You get a lot of customers, you get a lot of volumes, but every month you lose money. So, wow, no business. Again, you can give up or you challenge yourself. And we develop a game. We work a lot on the technologies, and we create a very efficient technologies that works there, actually. And then we think, it's okay, we have everything. We have the front end, we have the platform, but it's incredibly efficient, everything is working, but then you have the market. The markets, you have some large customers, it's nice, you deliver a nice experience, but then it comes back, you have a lot of retailers, because sportbook, it's not something that happens in the last years in Africa, it's going on from a lot of years, but it was working in retail. And all these companies want to move online. Perfect, new customers, it's fantastic. But then happen a new challenge. That you bring them on board and they expect that you support them in their operation, in their marketing, in their customer support, because they don't know anything about online, nothing. So again, we take some of them and we favor them because it's not our job. Our job is not to do this. We are not an operators. We don't do this kind of activity. Again, you can fail, you fail, and you can challenge yourself. And again, we build a new concept. We build this concept of certified partner. So a partner that distribute our technology in the market together with knowledge, with support on the operation, and the capacity to support a retailer to go and to move online. So the conclusion is that failures always happen. It's normal. I don't think that there is one successful company that never failed. It's what happened for us. We challenge ourselves and we succeed at the end. And this is an example about if you take the largest company and the company that want to innovate, because innovation is connected as well to risk. And when you want to innovate, when you want to take risk, the probability to have failures are quite high. You can learn from your failures, or sometimes you can learn from the failures of the others. So when someone is a pioneer, normally it's teach the rest of his competitors how it should do, but someone has to fail. There is no way to do it that way. We see now in the US, everybody was rushing now today, we go in the US, it's a fantastic market, we will take the market. The first step will be for sure failures. For sure, it's a different market, different experience, different way to experience the sportbook and so on. So it will happen in the same way. So, by my experience, failures, it's not a negative concept at all.
Yeah, failure doesn't have to be absolute. Failures you have incremental failures, loads of them. In fact, in my businesses, I tell my staff, if you're not failing, you haven't pushed it far enough. If we don't do something out there, which is a crazy idea, which we're trying, that fails, well, we've not gone far enough. How do you ever find the limit if you're never willing to go far enough to fail? And in your example, you have a series of incremental failures which improve the product. You've got to accept when you're failing instead of what you said, we've got everything now, it's great. Well, if you took that attitude, you'd be out of business right now. You wouldn't be one of the leaders in Africa. You innovate, and you innovate, and you innovate. You chose those failures to analyze, adjust,
and take
risk.
And risk. Every time you take a risk, there is a probability of failures, always. And if you want to be an entrepreneur and want to innovate, you have to take, it's part of the game.
So they're not always just disaster failures, but I'm an investor as well, so I invest in the space. And sometimes it is disastrous. Sometimes you look at something that you put a lot of time, effort, and energy in, and you realize, you know what, the things that I thought that would happen, that would make this work, just don't exist, haven't happened, and we lost. This one's gone. Sorry. And when you're at an absolute failure point, it's important to recognize that. It's important at that point to just say, we're not going to put more energy in this, because you're just wasting your time. You're going to hurt yourself long-term, emotionally, financially. You're not going to be in the right headspace. You're going to feel like a real failure if you hold on to something longer than you really should. Sometimes you just have to let it go. Does anyone want to share any of their failures, incremental or absolute? I'm sure there must be some incremental failures. I'm sure there are lots of incremental failures.
Michael, can I add?
My God. Grandma?
Hello. So in terms of marketing for online gaming companies, it's all about trial and error. It always has been. It's always about optimization. So as you said, if you're not having these micro failures, you're not trying hard enough. And there's so much more out there that you can get. So definitely, it's part of the process. It's absolutely part of the process.
And you generally feel really bad when it happens. That's the other thing. You feel like a failure when you have some of these little setbacks and failures. You can't think that way. And you think everyone's looking at you like, oh, I'm gonna lose. No, that's not what they're doing. Saying there's an entrepreneur, he's doing what entrepreneurs do. Something like 1 in 7 entrepreneurial endeavors work out. The odds are really against you. Don't feel bad if you've done something the wrong way. Just be tough enough, I think, to try again. So no one wants to share? Oh, thank you, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but this was an underestimation of success as opposed to messing anything up. The company I worked for, a company called Intertops, we created the very first online sportsbook in 1986. And there's a little saying that I've heard on the radio the other day was, an inventor does not realize what it is they invented. And we did not realize what we invented at that time. We were like the only guys online. And suddenly we were like so busy, we made so much money in a very short period of time. But our biggest mistake was we didn't patent the idea. And that's what we should have done, because every single one of these online sportsbooks would have been paying us money for a while, and we would have liked that very much. So a missed opportunity, that was what we had.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys don't know, this is the gentleman who single-handedly wrote the software for the first sports book ever to take a bet online in 1996, 96, when it went online. And incidentally, the first bet, well, they lost it. 100% loss, yeah, on the very first day. Now, let's see. Alina, you have some experience from being the CMO at Btobet and probably the rest of your business career. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your F-Ups?
Hi everyone, my name is Alina. I want to tell about B2C marketing, and I want to highlight that sometimes a failure is not doing something bad, but not doing something right. So when you miss some opportunity, it's also a failure. So I'm going to focus on one missed opportunities of Btobet. But talking about my company, we're the largest betting company on CIS market. Actually, Btobet is the first betting company, and now we have an anniversary of 25 years of the company. We have always been #1 of the brand awareness, #1 of the market share, but frankly speaking, things start changing. This year we made a research and found out that we're losing our position in the brand awareness among the young audience. So the audience from 16 to 24 years, the Btobet is not their top of mind, is not their #1 betting company. Then we start to do the deeper research, trying to find out why it happened so, what we did wrong, what we missed, etc., etc. And we found out that in Russia, the young audience is keen on esports. So all the male in Russia watch esports, play esports, watch bloggers, etc., etc. Actually, Btobet 2 years ago made a department which was responsible for the esports product, and at that time we faced a question where we want to invest in esports marketing or not. We evaluate all pros and cons. We see that the share of esports at that time was very little, so it was just about 5% of all sports. Of course, football, hockey are always #1. Esports like League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike had 4-5% of the share at that time. The prices for the advertising were quite high, so we evaluate everything 2 years ago and look at this like we never get return on marketing investment if we invest in esports marketing, and decided not to go there, to use other channels. But what I see now after deep interviews, after the research, that nearly 60% of the audience in Russia who love esports, who bet on esports, they also bet on football and on hockey. So it's not going to esports as a marketer. It's not a way to increase. It's not only a way to increase the sum of bets in esports. It's also a channel to communicate with the young audience. So if you want to reach a young audience, they don't want TV, they don't read newspapers, they're all on social media, they're all on video games. They see the streamers on Twitch, they see YouTube bloggers, the guys they're looking after, the people who are influencers for them are the esports sportsmen. So that's why if we look on esports like a channel to communicate with the audience, not like a commercial channel, not like the way you invest $1 million, you want to get $1.1 million, not to see just return on marketing investments by the sum of money you get from esports. If you look at this like a way to increase the brand awareness, like increase the reputation of your company among the young audience, it will work out. So we came to this conclusion a couple of months ago. We make a new strategy now, which is a lot about the esports. Yes, it was a missed opportunity. Now we are not on the same page with other betting companies in Russia who did. There are two, our main competitors, who did it right, who invested in esports 2 years ago. So they're a bit ahead of us, but I'm sure we'll do good. We'll have time to just be number one again for the young audience. But the conclusion that I want to make, that sometimes you should look at the bigger picture, take some steps back, think whether you are making the right decision, maybe to take some consultancy, maybe to just get some more research, especially on the questions which are kind of trendy, so and no one knows how to deal with these sports like 2-3 years ago. Maybe to do the right forecast. It will help you not to make a mistake, not to miss the right opportunity. So it's something about this.
Yes, I'm glad you went last, because that is one of the, actually, it sounds like a minor thing. It's one of the biggest fuck ups you can make, actually, is doing the same thing over and over as you've always done it, is really what you were saying. You were the leader in the market, you're big, you know how to invest and get an ROI of 10%, and you did it over and over and over thinking that was going to be a great idea, because it's always worked in the past. And it's probably easier than getting a new paradigm, a new way to think, and saying we're going to invest in branding, which you can't measure. Hardly anyone here is thinking about a branding investment, because we keep going by CPC. I mean, the system's almost set up to not allow us to do that. So you did the same thing that you did last year, hoping that's going to work this year. We make that mistake here too. That's why we're trying to innovate. That's why we're trying to do things where we're going to fail. Because if you do the same thing over and over, the times move, they leave you behind. So that's actually one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. And it's great that you learned from it. It's great that you picked it up and said, this is a small failure, as you were saying a second ago, and then changing the paradigm based on that small failure and recognizing what's gone wrong before it was too late.
Sometimes you try to not fail, you risk to fail more.
Yeah, playing it safe, oftentimes a failure. Gotta recognize the times move on. Hard to motivate your staff to do it. Your staff, especially if you have a big staff like you do at PhoneBet, it's very hard to get them to start thinking differently, to do something different than they do every day.
Actually, we have kind of 10% of our marketing budget each year, which we just which goes for some crazy ideas, new ideas, whatever ideas, because you never know what will work out in marketing. You're absolutely true. If you start doing what you do last, what worked 3-4 a year ago, you will never succeed, because there are always competitors who make it out of the box. That's why it's very important. But an important thing about staff is that in our company, we treat with failures like it's okay to make mistakes, but it's good to admit your mistakes. The thing I hate the most, and the thing that I probably will not forgive, is when the employee hides his or her mistakes. Because doing mistakes is okay. Our CEO says like the one who did the most mistake has done the most of the work. So the more you do, the more mistakes you do, they'll always be there. But to hide your mistakes, pretend that you don't make it once, is just the hugest mistake you can make.
And that is actually a really nice way to look at it. The one who's made the most mistakes and the most amount of work. So before we end the session, is there anything that anyone wants to share? If you want to cry, I'll hold you. You can hug, talk about it. Anyone want to share any of their mistakes? Well, I hope that you've not made any, only to the point where you've got to the edge of innovation without making any. But that's an impossibility. So I guess I conclude this session. I hope you go far enough so that something fails, and then you know where the boundaries lie. You know how to assess it. You know how to pull back and make your business stronger. And I really do hope that with these three panelists sharing their mistakes, you've learned something that you can take back to your business and actually maybe be transformative, and maybe have the courage to go a little bit further than you ever have before. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our panel.